Hi, Nancy Bovair here with Agape and Next Steps. And I had mentioned last year when we did the rebrand that I was going to be introducing some controversial topics. So today is going to be one of those controversial topics. I'd like to address the topic of MAID here in Canada, Medical Assistance in Dying. At least the name is better than it used to be. Back in the 1990s, it was called doctor-assisted suicide, which, I mean, that connotation alone is stigmatizing and has issues. So the reason I wanted to bring this up right now is the Canadian government has made the decision over the course of the last few days that they're going to withhold any decision on expanding eligibility for MAID. The intention was, I believe the date was March 17th of 2024, that people suffering from mental health challenges, mental illnesses, would have the capacity within certain eligibility requirements to request MAID. So they've decided that they're going to put that on hold at this time. But it brought me back to an issue that has bothered me for many, many years. And that is the issue of eligibility for people who have dementia. Clearly, those of you who have been following my blog posts or any of my videos here are aware of the fact that I act as a power of attorney and medical representative for a longtime friend of mine, and she is suffering from Alzheimer's. She's now in very advanced state. So before I get into my rationale for supporting MAID for people with dementia, I want to qualify that by saying that obviously I am a supporter of medical assistance in dying. I don't believe that I have the right or the authority to make decisions for other people. I don't live their lives, I don't walk in their shoes, and I don't know what their challenges and everyday issues are. So therefore, what right do I have to make that kind of a decision for them? I'm not doing this video to try to convince anybody one side of the argument or the other. Everybody has their reasons and everybody has their rights for believing what they believe about the legislation for MAID. Now, having stated that, the issue that I have with the legislation as it pertains to people with dementia is that in many cases, there is the qualification that you do have to give informed consent shortly before MAID is administered. And clearly, if you have advanced dementia, you have an impaired mental capacity to be able to state that, yes, you understand and you are giving an informed consent to going forward with the medical assistance in dying. Now, the legislation has been updated slightly, but it's still incredibly convoluted. So the most recent information that I found on the Alzheimer's Society's page is that somebody with early dementia can apply for MAID in the future when they are in an advanced state. But there are several criteria that are involved in that. And the unfortunate thing is, let me just reflect back on, a scenario that I'm very familiar with. The person that I am managing the care for has told me for 40 years that when she got to a certain point with her advanced dementia, that she was going to be wanting to have medical assistance in dying if it was available at that time. And in fact, when she was still mentally competent, she made a legal document that stated that those were her wishes, and that if she was not able to provide informed consent, that she authorized her legal representative, me, to make that decision on her behalf. The problem is that that was written up before this legislation changed. And the criteria with the change in legislation is that you do have to have two medical practitioners collaborate with you on the plan to implement MAID in the future at a certain time. There has to be written consent at that time. And all of those steps weren't available 10 years ago when my friend did this medical directive. So that leaves not just her, but people of a whole generation that would not have wanted to live in the state that they're living in to not be able to opt for that medical assistance in dying option. I just don't understand why you can pay for a legal document to be created and witnessed and signed when you are in a competent frame of mind to make a decision that is not respected and adhered to down the road. So that's my little soapbox for the moment. I would encourage anybody who is wondering about this to check out the Alzheimer's site or just simply Google, can people with dementia, are people with dementia eligible for MAID in Canada? And then you can find out the information. But having said that, I will tell you that the legislation is quite convoluted. For instance, it also states in there that somebody cannot give informed consent on behalf of another person if their mental competency has been diminished, if they stand to benefit from that person's death. In other words, if you're an heir or if you've been left anything by the person who is opting for that option, then you cannot provide informed care. And yet, I know of an instance where there was a husband who had arranged for MAID. He became mentally incompetent at the time that it was time to make that decision. And because his legal documents and his MAID documents had stated that his representative could make that decision if he wasn't able to, she was able to do that, even though she benefited from his death. So these laws, I understand that it's incredibly important that we have safeguards in place. I understand that we need to make sure that, you know, the doom and gloom scenario back in the 90s was that doctors were going to have people done away with so that they could harvest organs and do all kinds of weird Orwellian kinds of things. I don't honestly think that that would be where our society would devolve to. I'm not saying that maybe in some cases it couldn't happen, but I don't think as a society it would devolve to that. So I understand that we do need safeguards. I just think that we need to be clearer with the safeguards. I think that we need to make them the laws and the criteria less convoluted and easier to understand. We are living in an age where we are living longer and longer and longer, and we are having more and more people living with diminished cognitive abilities. And we don't have enough places to house them safely. We don't have enough people to take care of them properly and to keep these people alive when they didn't want to be alive at a certain point in their life, to me, is cruel and inhumane. I'll leave you with that. I welcome your comments. As I say, this is not intended to try to force anybody to think one side of the argument or the other. The intention of these videos is just to create conversation and dialogue and get people just thinking outside of the box. Thanks very much. I look forward to sharing again with you in the future. Bye for now.